This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
You are listening to Copy Chief Radio. Welcome back to another edition. This time we've got a bunch of chiefs here and one former chief all together working on... Yeah, that was a little guilt there. So I'll let you take it over, Kevin. What's up, brother?
Cool, brother. Yeah, good to be back with you. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to fly through a lot of content here today. It's a thick subject. We're going to try to simplify it for you. We're going to use an example using Jonathan Rivera's amazing Podcast Factory network that is like quickly becoming a real thing in a crowded market of podcasting, and people are starting different networks. And Jonathan, this started very organically for you, and now you've got, I think, the best host out there. And it's really become like a theme and a vibe to what you're doing. So when that happens in our business, we need something called a USP, a unique selling proposition is the sort of traditional formal term for it. And it simply means it's the thing that tells people why they should buy your stuff or consume your stuff over somebody else's. If you have a really tight, to the point, on target USP, it really helps to build an audience, help people identify with you, with why they consume your stuff, and even identify themselves a little bit. If you have very strong branding, then people will proudly wear you on their chest, so to speak. I'm very proud of my Podcast Factory Get On Top t-shirt.
Dude, and you just you wore that t-shirt and you made it look so damn cool. Me and my wife were like, I think we need to take down our picture. Kevin did it way too well.
You got to wear it to a concert. That was my trick. I wore it out somewhere cool. So, so joining us on this episode is my man Ross O'Loughlin is back. A fan favorite of the show, even though this hasn't broadcast yet. I'm going to make the claim. That's my USP for you, Ross. Your fan favorite, Ross O'Loughlin.
Do I get a t-shirt?
Oh, yeah. He wants a t-shirt. Absolutely.
Just start a new line. Fan favorite.
Yeah.
And also,
howdy, folks.
And Ross is the USP master inside of Copy Chief. We have a 2-part training in there. And Ross has, an amazing formula for creating your USP by simply answering the right questions, doing a little bit of research, a lot of which you'll probably already have in your head, and then putting it through his little calculator that kind of spits out your perfect USP or close to perfect. So then you can sort of polish it up and then hang out your shingle. And so also joining us is Will Eldridge. What's up, Will?
Hello. How's it going?
Good, brother. Will is a copywriter, and he works with Jonathan at the Podcast Factory. So we thought we'd bring Will in, since oftentimes it's the copywriter who's kind of responsible for figuring out the USP of a business, of a product, of an expert. And in Jonathan's case, not unlike Ross and I have taught USP through the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, quite a bit. And what's so fascinating about that example is they have a USP for their brand, for their fights, and for their fighters. And Ross, it's occurring to me right now that it's we got a parallel going here with Podcast Factory, right? We got the brand, we got the shows, and then we got the individual personalities.
Yeah. That's the thing that a lot of companies, and which we're going to cover in a minute, that when people are first working on their USP, one of the tripping points they get up on is they think that they just have one. So they try to squeeze as much into it as possible. But at the very highest level, when you see businesses that are really bringing it home, it's because they know how their ideal customers think about their business, and they know the individual entities that exist in it, and they figure out what the USP is for each of those things.
Yeah, brilliant. So give us a quick rundown. If someone's, just landed from Mars into this world of marketing, they're going, what the heck is a USP? Give us like the little thumbnail sketch of even better than I just did there, what it is, why you need one, how to go about creating it.
Yeah. Well, the most functional definition that I keep in my back pocket is a USP is the answer to the question, if I am your ideal customer, why should I buy from you rather than any of your competitors? Or, if I am your ideal customer, why should I take this action rather than any other action, right? Because not every time that you're interacting with your customers, they might necessarily be buying and taking out their wallet, but they're making a choice, right? And you have to understand what that choice is and why they should choose your option versus the other options that exist right in front of them.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. Very good. Okay, cool. So, look, this starts with research. You've got to understand what your best customers or potential customers or your audience, what do they like about you? Why are they there? Why are they engaging? This is what I call the dialogue. It is the most valuable thing you can have as a business owner. An open dialogue with your best customers or the people that you think are very close to becoming your new customers. And for the Podcast Factory, there are a couple different ways that you guys are engaging your audience. You have some Facebook groups around some of the shows or maybe all the shows that you're hosting. I know Ben Settle's got a pretty active Facebook group for Antipreneur Radio, yeah? And so that's one way. So Will, that was sort of, I think, your first task, right? Was like, all right, well, go talk to people and find out what they like about us.
Yeah, I very much started with primary research, and I just dived into those groups based around those shows and just started asking questions, trying to get people on the phone and basically picking their brains about what they liked, what they didn't like about the shows.
Now, cool. So how were you surveying them? Were you kind of private messaging them, that kind of stuff? Or was it like a formal, hey, go to the Survey Monkey and answer a few questions for us?
I sent them a message and tried to get them on the phone.
Okay, so you're going deep with a few individuals rather than trying to get some data from a lot of people.
Oh, definitely. I think that's the best way to go through, because that way, for me, I find that rather than getting a lot of data to sift through, I have those few people that are going deep into what they actually do like and what they don't like, the things that they find that they actually connect with and what basically they engage with and what they take from the shows, rather than trying to pigeonhole them all into one survey. And it gives me a good starting point to actually move the research forward as well.
Yeah, great points. I agree. And it's also a great way to get testimonials, right? If you're recording those calls and you say, hey, can I quote you on this thing you said or something really cool?
I think that line that you have, Kev, is dialogue beats data?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, every time. And that's what Will did here. So Will, what kind of things were popping up? What were you hearing the most from people about why they liked Podcast Factory shows?
The recurring themes that kept popping up over and over again, I think I did until about 15 of these calls. And it was the punchiness, it was how pithy they were, how everyone got to the point. It was very actionable. People loved it. They connected with the people for a variety of different reasons, but everyone was thoroughly entertained with what they were hearing, as opposed to other shows where they could drag on for a little bit too long. Obviously not this show.
Those sucky ones.
There were some shows that they listened to that were pushing the boundaries of keeping their attention span, so we say.
You're being polite. Yeah, those ones that go, get to the point. Get to the point. There was a title on this show, and we haven't even gotten near it yet, and I'm 30 minutes in. Yeah, that's the thing about podcasting is like anybody can have one.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean you're qualified to be talking into a microphone. Awesome. So Jonathan, you came into Copy Chief and you went through Ross's training, and then you started where with getting help.
So first of all, I want to say that it's quite obvious that you spend a lot of time dialoguing with your market, because every time you put something out, I'm like, damn, I needed that. How did he know? And so this was right on time. When I saw the USP thing, I was like, damn, this is the right time for me to be doing that. And then when I listened to it, and Ross, dude, you are just a wealth of information. So all that training, I listened to everything, went through your formulas. And I said, this is great. Will was already working on the project. So I came back to Will and I'm like, I didn't know, I couldn't articulate to him why it wasn't hitting home. Something wasn't right. But then I came back to him with some of the insight I got from you guys, and we narrowed some things down so that we had something closer to what I was looking for. And then that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Not only because it gives my ego a little boost, but it's a testament to the dialogue in effect as well, right? Like that training that we put out, which I think I'm very happy with, and we've got a lot of great feedback about it. It was a result of the dialogue and feedback within the community, right? Like there was 4 or 5 iterations of that content before it got to a training, and we were in dialogue with the members all the way through. So by the time it got to the stage that you consumed, we knew what people wanted in it.
Yeah, it showed.
Interestingly, that is actually one of the USPs of Copy Chief, because what I say is, rather than me dream up a training that I hope you'll find valuable and want, I only build trainings around things that are needed and are working for people in the community. And that's the value of having a community, is that, talk about a dialogue. I mean, you're really getting people's wants and needs and frustrations on a daily basis and going, how do we solve this for you? And having people go, wow, eureka, that just happened. And you go, well, there's a training.
Nice.
A dialogue makes everything else kind of just happen. All you have to do is facilitate it and take the obvious cues. So that's super cool. And that was the case. But then Ross stepped up, I got to just say, and like really knocked this not only out of the park, out of the stadium, smashed a windshield on the street. I mean, it was, just an amazing training. So Ross, now that your ego is bigger than the room you're in, talk to us about, seeing Jonathan's, where he was with it. What holes did you see in it pretty quickly, and where did it end up from there?
Yeah. So I'll just give I'm in the thread here inside in the forums, and I'll just give like the overview of the first iteration that was kind of put up. So obviously when it comes to USP, it starts with the question, and his question, the question for the Podcast Factory, was focused on the USP for their listeners. So why someone should listen to the network specifically, right? Yeah. And the question was, if I am a business owner or marketer who listens to podcasts to learn more about business and marketing, why would I listen to the Podcast Factory network? So, first thing I gave feedback on was the question itself, because, in my experience, 90% of the problems with a USP stem from the fact that it's the question hasn't been phrased correctly, right? Like a problem well defined is half solved, as they say, and it's the same thing with a USP, right? You get the USP question right first, it makes everything much, much easier. So the first thing I pointed out was that you need to focus on one ideal customer, right? This is, like I mentioned earlier, is one of the problems that people get, and it's a natural problem to run into, because you're like, oh yeah, I need to work on my USP, because when you haven't really dived into this topic, you think, oh yeah, he's got a USP, that's the USP for that. There's like one individual one. Oftentimes that's not the case. So the big hint I saw there was, in the question, there's the word or. Anytime you see the word or, it means that you're hunting with a shotgun instead with a rifle, right? You're like sending a load of lead downrange and hoping that something lands, rather than scoping in on one, nailing the target, and then moving on to the next one. So nice. That was the first bit of feedback that I said, and I said to Jonathan, which is your most ideal customer? Which is the most valuable one? Did you get somewhere with that? Did you narrow in on one individual target market?
Well, did we narrow that down? I think the main thing that I'm looking at is just business owners. But maybe I'm thinking too broad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I settled on business owners as well, because I know some marketers do listen to it, but the vast majority of the people I spoke to were definitely business owners, not employees.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So that's it. That's perfect, right? Because then when you're having the conversation with one person, it's much easier to dial into exactly what it is they're looking for. The second point that I saw in there was that there was a lot of marketees right? Which is when, marketers start and copywriters start trying to make things sound awesome. And it's just a natural thing that we do because, why would you make something sound boring, right? You're not going to bore someone into a sale. But when you're coming up with your USP, like your USP is the argument for why someone should choose you, right? So I always recommend that people focus on making it as logic and plain sounding as possible in plain English, because it needs to be compelling in that form, right? It needs to dial in on the exact reasons for someone to choose you. Like you can take the argument and you can turn it into copywriting and landing pages and headlines later, but working out the core kernel at the core of all of this should just be a logical, rational argument that someone should read and go, oh yeah, clearly that's the reason why I should listen to the Podcast Factory. So that was point number 2.
Excellent.
And the last one was the last part. There was no kind of the last part of the question was why should I listen to the Podcast Factory network? And there it's not kind of dialing into what the choice being made is by the ideal customer, right? Mm-hmm. Like, does a business owner listen to other, like when they're making the decision to choose the Podcast Factory network, like what are they thinking about? Are they thinking, like what network am I going to tune into this week? Or like where am I going to go to get more podcasts? Or is it like what other podcasts am I going to listen to? So like understanding the decision that they're trying to make and then putting your option in that context just makes it much easier to think about, why someone should choose you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, in a thing like podcasting, we know that a lot of people will find the show either because they're already into the expert and they're hearing about it from them, or maybe they found us through another show if the host was on as a guest on that show, or they may have found it in the suggested shows or, other people are subscribed to in iTunes. And then it becomes this choice of, all right, I've been alerted that 4 or more podcasts that I'm into have new episodes. Which one am I going to make a priority?
So let me, now that we're talking about this, I do have a couple clarifying questions. And number one, I have an avatar dialed in about my ideal customer, the ideal person that would either be on my network or would be a customer of my service. Would I be using that same avatar as my listener avatar and really be trying to dial into those people is the first question. And the second question is, I think at the end of the day, any of these business people just want to make more sales. So is that legitimate or is that too broad?
Yeah, so to answer the second one there about if what they're looking for is more sales and the reason they're tuning into these podcasts, these business and marketing podcasts is for more sales and that's what they want, I would not say that it's too broad. Always include that primary want, but there's a lot of business and marketing podcasts out there that are that would get that same result for them, right?
Okay.
But it mightn't be the reason why they specifically choose yours. Like it may be that they'll get that same result while only getting it in 30 minutes and it being amazingly actionable.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Completely different USP. And also being entertained, right? So the core result always needs to be there, but it may not be the exact reason why they choose you, if that's kind of dialing in on that second part. So
okay.
the first thing you said, you had an ideal customer for who? The listener?
Actually, like I do have an avatar, not necessarily for a listener, but for my customer, which is the end result that I'm looking for out of all of this. And that would be guys on the network like Kevin, who he fits my avatar perfectly, and the customers I have using my white label service.
Yeah. So I would separate those out for sure. I would, at the same time, when you're clear about why someone should listen to the network and you're messaging that, you're going to grow the audience, right? But then when you're growing that audience, it will include people like Kev. And then when they come to the website or they see your marketing materials for actually working with you, you'd want to have that USP for why they may want to join the network.
Yeah,
now,
so I need the listener avatar is what I need.
Yeah, 100%. And like there may very well be overlap in those two, but like you need to be clear about why they should take a specific action, and those actions are different.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Great point. It's kind of like you see this all the time. Not that this is anything like multi-level marketing, but it reminds me of when somebody has two avatars like that, right? So say you sell Avon makeup, you want your customer, but then you want your customer maybe to become somebody who actually sells the stuff, right? And I've had so many people come to me and say, can you look at this? And they're trying to sell both things to somebody at the same time. And that's disaster.
Yeah.
You cannot try to cover two different USPs and go, and once you, buy this lipstick and fall in love with it, you could start making up to $10,000 a month selling it. And you're like, whoa, what? I haven't even put it on yet. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
So that's a great point, Ross, that, you got to separate them out. And I think, the someone using the service of the network is a much kind of easier avatar. It's like, hey, do you have a podcast? Yeah. Hey, would you like to outsource all the drudgery of getting the show to actually play on somebody's device?
And hey, would you like to be part of this exclusive club, right? Like that, to me, off the top of my head, is the appeal. Because, when some marketing guru or authority is thinking, hey, I want to start my podcast. What kind of company do I want to be in? You know what I mean? There's very appealing set of company that you have under your roster, right?
Yeah. So we got to work, Will. I think what we're hearing here, I don't know what you're hearing, but I'm hearing we need to dial in our listener avatar.
Yeah, I was literally just about to pose a question there. For each of JR's shows, like the host is going to have their own avatar. So would that be worth taking into account? Would it be worth getting their avatars to mix it in and see what we're coming up from theirs as well? Because obviously that would give us a lot more data and make things a lot easier. But obviously then we're in the position where we've got 10 different avatars and we're trying to hit 10 different things. But
yeah. No, I think, realistically, the best way to approach it would be to look at the avatar for each show and see what the similarities are, right? Like there's going to be a certain type of person that wants to listen to all of them. Like me, for example, I listen to Ben Settles, I listen to Kevs, I don't listen to Doberman Dan's just because, I haven't added it in and I'm, everyone's up to their eyeballs in information. But like there are certain people that are going to listen to certain parts. And I definitely think, you can put together an avatar that would be interested in listening to the other shows on the network because they are finding the same components of the shows appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have similar values. Like the people I choose to work with, we do have similarities in values and work ethic and stuff like that. So there is some common thread between all of us.
Yeah, I look at it like it's the difference between, do I want to go on, say, to a festival, a music festival? Am I going to Bonnaroo, or am I going to Lollapalooza, or do I need to get to both? Like what's the difference? Or then there's like the Metal Fest. So some of them, there might be, they say the Red Hot Chili Peppers could play one of 3 festivals and it would make sense, but they're different enough still, right? So if I only have enough money to invest in one of those, which one am I going to? That's how I kind of look at the personalities you have on the factory, and why it makes sense to me, Jonathan, is, there's an outlaw element. Everybody, they're kind of renegade thing. A lot, attitude, not necessarily means they're nasty, negative shows, but not a lot of like pandering or total politeness. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So to me, there's an edge to the host you have on. And that's why even it depends to me, when you talk about the services of the Podcast Factory, maybe I'm wrong, but I think somebody could hire your company to produce their show, but not really fall under the umbrella of the personalities that you present as Podcast Factory shows. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right about that.
So there I would almost have a third avatar of somebody, like it's totally just a service. You're not going to, Jonathan's not going to co-host your show. It's
Sorry
not
for you.
Yeah. So it's you don't really get to join the band, but you probably get a backstage pass when we come to town because you're in the fold, so to speak, right?
Yeah, that's good stuff. Now, I know we got to end this show soon, and selfishly, this was all for me, people. So if you don't like it, screw you. But another good reason for people to join Copy Chief, obviously, stuff like this. So anything that we want to say as we're wrapping up?
Yeah, like I think Kevin's point there at the end is very just for yourself is definitely on point. And another similar option or way to think about it is, if you're listening to politics in the US, are you tuning into the left leaning or the right leaning media, right? Like before you're even choosing which station to tune into, you're picking one field. So I think that could be similar, enough to use as a thought exercise.
Good stuff. Anything else, Will?
No, for me, it makes a lot of sense to have all those separate avatars, like especially when it comes to product avatars and then as a general overview kind of avatar, because for each show, we do have a different target customer, and I'm guessing the listener who has a product or a service or multiple products or services will have those unique like value propositions for every different aspect of their business, as well as an overarching one where, as Kevin said, it's more about like the different types of shows you could go to, where Red Hot Chili Peppers might not be able to play at all the shows, but some of them are going to match those avatars as a broad kind of generalization where it goes into specifics later on.
Secretly, I think Will is super excited because we're talking job security here. He's like, more avatars.
That's right. Wow. I just tripled my workload. This is good.
That's right. So, Kevin, what do you have coming up for us next time?
Oh, very exciting. Next, we have another guest on the show. Next, what we're going to talk about is the 30-day email challenge that we're doing inside of Copy Chief, which has been super fun. And that'll be a quick one. We're just going to talk about some of the major takeaways. Speaking of, Podcast Factory personalities, this is based on Ben Settle's ongoing challenge to his email players, subscribers. And so because there's a lot of crossover in our worlds, we took it upon ourselves to create a 30-day email challenge in Copy Chief. And I'm really excited to share some of the results of that.
Man, I can't wait. So, Will, thank you for being here and having some time with us. Ross, always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much. Kevin, you're the best, as always. And even more importantly, if you stuck around to the end, you listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week.
See you.
You've been listening to Copy Chief Radio. Thank you for tuning in. If you're digging what we are laying down for you, then your next step is to go over to iTunes, type in Copy Chief Radio into the search bar, and when you find a show, subscribe. We will be back in your earbuds next week.
This is the podcastfactory.com.